Welcome to the First Aid and Bloodborne Pathogens Annual Awareness Training. This training is going to give you the information you need to protect yourself against bloodborne pathogens in the workplace. These are also very good procedures that you can use at home. In the event we have an emergency in this facility, we need you to act quickly. Immediately assist a person in need, notify your supervisor. Hopefully a first aid responder is nearby. We need to call 911 or at minimum notify security to contact 911. If you're going to contact security, use channel 2 on the plant radio. All right, let's discuss our first aid supplies. We do have a first aid room. It's located off the room where the main lab coats and vests are in the front hallway. We have 6 first aid cabinets and 4 AEDs distributed throughout the plant. We have employees on all shifts that are trained in first aid, CPR, and AED use. Please make sure that you report any first aid that you need to your supervisor immediately. Okay guys, we're putting log sheets on the front doors of all of our first aid cabinets. All right, this is an attempt to track our incidents. It's an attempt to track our first aid supply use. We're trying to figure out if we need to get bigger first aid cabinets or if we need to get more first aid cabinets, whatever the case may be. So we require metal detectable bandages in the pack hall. So if you cut yourself at home and you have a Band-Aid on and you come into work, make sure that you go get a metal detectable blue Band-Aid. All right. Make a note on the log that you cut yourself at home and that you're just getting a blue Band-Aid and some ointment. It's no big deal. Just put a note there real quick what happened. If you cut yourself at work, put a note there, what happened, where it happened, what you're using, and then make sure you know that you've let your supervisor know about it. Okay, so we're just trying to find out how much is being used, if we need to use more, and then it also helps track our incidents. Okay, let's go through our bloodborne pathogens general awareness training. This is an annual awareness training. This is another OSHA standard. We need to make sure you guys all know the ways to protect yourselves in case you should come in contact with any infectious materials. Okay, like everything else, there's an OSHA standard for this. The OSHA standard prescribes safeguards to protect workers against the health hazards from exposure to blood and other potentially infectious materials and to reduce their risk from this exposure. Okay, so what are bloodborne pathogens? Bloodborne pathogens, in a nutshell, is people's wet stuff. Saliva, vomit, anything that comes out of or off of someone's body that is wet could potentially contain infectious materials. OSHA says that anyone who can reasonably expect to come in contact with blood or potentially infectious materials as part of their job is covered by this standard and must receive training. So how does exposure occur? Bloodborne pathogens may cause infections by entering your body through any open cut or nick, skin abrasions, any dermatitis. Dermatitis is when any skin is broken, irritated, or open. So please remember that a sunburn is just a large, raw, open wound as well. All right. It can also get through your mucous membranes, your mouth, your eyes, your nose, even your vagina. There are 3 general ways that pathogens are spread. The first is direct contact, basically skin to skin. One infected person directly touches another person. The other person may have a cut on their hand, and when the two touch, the infectious agent might go into the cut, and the person that was not infected to begin with now could be infected. Indirect contact is the next way. This involves the transfer from an object or a person. So an infected person may touch a door handle, for instance. Another person comes along that's not infected. They have an open wound on their hand. they touch the door handle, once again, the infectious agent might go into that open wound and infect a non-infected person. All right, airborne transmission is the last way. This occurs when droplets or small particles that contain infectious agents remain infective over time and distance, spread through the air. All right, in the old days, tuberculosis was spread that way very, very quickly. Bloodborne pathogens are not typically spread this way, although a lot of infectious diseases are. One of the engineering controls that we use to reduce employee exposure is sharps disposal containers. These are found in the first aid room, in the Royals room, and in the quality lab. If you have any sharps, knife blades, broken glass, needles or lancets from diabetic medicine use, all of these things must go in the sharps container. They can never go in the regular trash. Universal precautions are best practices when dealing with anybody's wet stuff. The number one rule, always, is treat all human body fluids or people's wet stuff as if they are infectious. Don't touch anyone's wet stuff without wearing appropriate gloves. Dispose of all contaminated PPE, clothing, rags, and other cleanup items properly. None of these go in the regular trash. The single most important universal precaution is washing your hands. Hand washing is the number one method in controlling the spread of communicable diseases. Now that we know hand washing is the number one way to prevent you from communicable diseases, let's talk about the best way to do it. You should wash your hands for a minimum of 15 to 30 seconds with a good soap and with running water. Make sure that you wash your hands before and after touching anyone's wet stuff. It's also a good idea to always wash your hands before and after eating, drinking, cooking, applying cosmetics or contact lenses. That way, if you've picked up something, even if it's a cold bug or the flu from someone else, you're doing a very good job of protecting yourselves from getting that. We have bloodborne pathogen kits located at or very near all of our first aid cabinets. If you should notice a first aid cabinet without a bloodborne pathogen kit, please bring it up to your supervisor so we can get it replaced. The bloodborne pathogen kits have all the universal precautions and PPE you will need. They've got gloves, face masks, hand sanitizer, plastic gowns, eye shields, germicide, everything that you need to protect yourself from people's wet stuff can be found in our bloodborne pathogens kits. Okay, let's talk about gloves for a second. Make sure that you wear non-latex or nitrile disposable gloves when rendering first aid or anytime you're exposed to people's wet stuff other than your own. Make sure you wear those gloves only once, replace them if they're torn or punctured, dispose of them in all properly marked containers, whether it's a red bag or a red bucket, and make sure to wash your hands after taking off your gloves. There is a proper way to remove your gloves so you don't get anybody's wet stuff on your skin when you're removing your gloves. All right, take one glove near the cuff and peel it down until it comes off inside out. Cup that glove in the palm of your other hand. Then place 2 fingers of your bare hand inside the cuff of the remaining glove. Peel that glove down so that it also comes off inside out and over the first glove. Now you have a nice little ball inside out of both gloves, and no one's wet stuff that could be on the outside of the gloves could interfere. Make sure you properly dispose those gloves in a red biohazard bag. Anytime splashes, spray, or spatter may be generated, if someone is bleeding profusely, if they're bleeding from the mouth and they could cough up spray splatter blood, anytime vomit may be present, you should always wear eye and mouth protection. This eye and mouth protector that you see in this picture is the type that is in our bloodborne pathogen kits. Okay, the last universal precaution is aprons. These are in our bloodborne pathogen kits as well. Anytime there's blood present or vomit, or maybe someone is discussing that they're very, very sick and they may throw up, these aprons are something that you should have on. Okay, to sum up universal precautions, make sure that you use nitrile gloves and other protective equipment anytime there's a risk of exposure to someone's wet stuff, regardless of whether you think that person is infected or not. Make sure that you put contaminated clothing, rags, your aprons and gloves, everything that you've used. Make sure that you dispose of all of that stuff in a properly labeled red biohazard bag, closed tightly at the top, and then placed in a red biohazard container. Make sure that you put all needles, lancets, blades, broken glass are to be disposed of in a sharps container. None of this stuff can go in the regular trash. So, quick question. What would you do if you see blood on a table? Hopefully, you always stop and take time to put on gloves or other PPE as needed to protect yourself. Hopefully, you get a little bleach, you clean it up, you put all of your PPE and all the rags or whatever you use to clean that up in the correct red biohazard bag, closed tightly, and then that bag put in a red biohazard container. The very best thing you can use to clean up someone's wet stuff is simple household bleach. You can take the time to put a solution of 10 parts water to 1 part bleach, but the most simple thing to do is just pour regular bleach onto people's wet stuff. Let it sit there for 10 or 20 seconds and then wipe it up with rags. You may have to do that a couple times, but eventually it will kill and destroy all disease-causing organisms that could be in the people's wet stuff. Make sure that you protect your eyes, though. You don't want it splashing in your eyes, and you don't want it splashing on your clothing. Okay, if you're exposed to blood or other infectious material, now well known as people's wet stuff, if you get it on your skin, make sure you wash with non-abrasive soap and water for a minimum of 30 seconds. If you get it in your eyes, your nose, your mouth, flush with running water for at least 3 minutes. Wet stuff waste must be placed in closable, leak-proof containers. So we use red biohazard bags and red biohazard buckets. The red biohazard bags can be found in the Royals room, the warehouse office, and the first aid room. Make sure that you put everything associated with wet stuff in there, close it tightly, secure it with a tie, then place it in the red biohazard bucket located in the first aid room. If the bag is too large to go in the bucket, place it beside the bucket and it will be handled appropriately. Okay, that concludes the first aid and bloodborne pathogen awareness training. Please make sure you take the quiz. We are grading the quizzes now, so please do your very best on them. Thanks for your time, and I appreciate your support.